When the rain slows and the paddocks start to dry, every decision on the farm matters a bit more. Droughts test more than just the land. They test our planning, our people, and our ability to adapt. But with the right preparation and a few practical steps, we can ease the pressure and recover faster. This short video series is here to help, guiding you to get ready, manage through, and bounce back from dry conditions. Each episode shares straight up practical advice from people who've been there, ideas you can use straight away. Small actions today can make a big difference tomorrow.
Really important talking about the different weather patterns through the year. The most crucial one is a drought. And we do a lot of work on droughts after the event, and we'd like to drive a little bit more into the preparation for the drought, which is pretty crucial. And that's not just 1 month before the drought. What I'd like to talk about is even 6 months before the drought, because the more preparation you do, it's called being proactive, the better it'll be instead of being reactive. So what we're going to talk about today is pasture and cropping, and mainly summer cropping, and that's relevant to all stock, and also managing your pasture. With summer cropping, you plan that much earlier, and actually I find the best time is to plan it after the last drought. Straight away you work out where you're going to put your crops and how you're going to manage them and how it's going to fit into your rotation. All right. Selecting crops is a broad spectrum, so I'm not going to go into too many specifics. What I'd like you to do is find a good rural professional that you can get alongside that can start helping you with that planning. Don't wait until this awful weather event may happen where you have a drought. Do it earlier. Get hold of these people, get them alongside you and start doing your planning. So with your cropping, you've got variations of brassicas, you've got cereal crops, any of those things fit in there. All farms are different, all regions are different. So get along that rural professional side. Okay, we're going to talk about the pasture because pasture is my passion, and the most important thing is look after it before any issues like weather events happen, and it'll fare you reasonably well. Sure, when it gets dry, it gets dry. The horse is bolted, the leak in the roof has stopped, and all of a sudden it starts to fall apart a little bit. But if you can prepare before then, you will work 1 to 2 weeks further into the dry period, and you'll actually pull back 1 or 2 weeks at the end of it. Okay, really important. What do we do? Well, what we've got to remember is your pasture has a reproduction period as well as your stock on the farm. They all have that reproduction period. That happens with your pasture. Unfortunately, that happens when everything's growing flat out, hard to manage, and you're doing things like cutting silage, making baleage, trying to graze paddocks when they've grown too far, and that's a little bit of a problem for your pasture because it's trying to reproduce. How does that pasture reproduce? It produces seed, and it produces this real unique little thing called daughter tillers. And we're going to talk about daughter tillers specifically because that's really important. That tillering happens twice a year, basically, autumn and spring, and it's prolific in the spring. Hey presto, so it is with all your stock. So lock yourself into reproduction, okay? Your pasture grows these tillers, and all the tillers generally only last a year. What we need is replacements, so they grow these daughter tillers in the bottom. You've got to look after them, okay? Don't overgraze at that period of time when the grass is growing crazy. Don't overgraze it. Just get down to that little 4 to 5 centimetres if you can, and hold it there and let those daughter tillers develop, because that's your pasture for next year. In relation to droughts, it's also the strength of your ryegrass pastures going into the dry period. So if you've got a good mass of daughter tillers that have produced and are yielding well and are well established, that drags you that 2 weeks into the drought, further into that dry period if you get it, okay? Look after your daughter tillers. Little bit of a gem here. When you're mowing silage, and I drive through the countryside quite a bit, and going along the road, and I look out to the left or glance to the left, and I see somebody's put cows in a paddock that's just been mowed for silage. Bad practice, because what they do is they do not just graze round the outside where you've left the rank grass, they also go through where you've mowed and they nibble off all the new stuff, and all that new stuff is generally daughter tillers. All right, do not graze freshly cut paddocks. Let it grow back. Put up with that ugly stuff on the fence line, because hey, the damage you're going to do in the paddock by putting stock in there is really, really bad. They trample it, they walk on all those little soft tillers, they bruise it, they kill it, then they nibble it off because it's actually the sweetest, and hey presto, you've done damage on that pasture, which will go through the drought potentially and get knocked around, and then it'll come out the other side not looking too good. Okay, do not graze silage paddocks. All right, when you're growing your grass up, 3-leaf stage, we all hear it all the time. It's very, very relative to pasture. Do not overgrow it. Grow it to that 3-leaf stage. That's the optimum yield of the paddock, because when the 4th leaf comes, the 1st leaf dies, okay? So 3-leaf stage in your ryegrass pastures, graze it off, mow it off, do what you do, let it regenerate, because that much above the ground is the battery for the ryegrass or the pasture, okay? The other thing is only letting it grow to that 3-leaf stage lets one of the most important things in pasture push itself out, and that's a funny little thing called clover. What's the value of clover? Produces nitrogen, high quality feed. All stock prefer clover to anything else. It's their preference to eat, so grow plenty of it. And in the dry, clover really produces well. It hangs on a lot better. Look after it. Okay, what we have here is a ryegrass plant, and we're talking about these tillers here. They only live a year, okay? So that tiller has to reproduce, and the way it reproduces is it pops up 2 or 3 of those to each of those in the spring, a little bit in the autumn, through the year when the weather conditions prevail and are good, and you really need to look after those little guys here. When you put stock in a freshly mowed silage paddock, ideally down to about there, the stock go in and you put them in there to graze around the fence line. What they do is they go in and they graze those, and they tend to do that, and that is the death of that daughter tiller. Okay, so don't graze your silage paddocks after you've cut silage. Let it regenerate. Let those little daughter tillers that are in there, and look, there's a fine bunch in there, really doing well, and this pasture is going to be pretty healthy going into the summer. And if it gets dry, it'll be strong, and that's also your growth for next year. All right, I'm going to cover off a little bit about summer cropping. Really, really important to have homegrown feed, and when we're going into periods of deficit, be it from weather events or whatever, cropping becomes quite important. The other important thing about cropping is it can help you replace your pastures, put in new pasture. Anyway, let's cover off a little bit about cropping and summer cropping, and it's a vast raft of products are available. Talk to your rural professionals earlier. Planning for summer cropping in my books begins back in March, April, May. Okay, you're starting to work out which paddocks aren't going to produce the pasture for you for homegrown feed going into the next year, and they're going to go into your cropping rotation to go forward. What's the value of a crop? Well, the value of a crop is intensive yield, production per hectare, and something that's sustainable in the dry. May not grow, may slow down, but you can get it to grow up until that period and then hold it to utilise that feed. There's brassicas, there's cereals, there's a raft of different products you can use in there, and it's a variation across the country. So talk to your rural professionals. Let them understand what's happening on your farm. They have to know what your operation is and what product best suits in there.